Trump, like here in this hemisphere, is flexing his new presidential muscles in a way that is grabbing international attention. So on Sunday, Donald Trump said that he would be cutting off foreign aid to South Africa specifically. You know, he's suspended a lot of foreign aid in the last couple days. Said to South Africa specifically until there is an investigation into a new law that just passed that essentially allows the South African government to confiscate land from farmers and redistribute it to whoever they want for zero compensation.
Jeez.
Here was Donald Trump's post. South Africa is confiscating land and treating certain classes of people very badly. It is a bad situation that the radical left media doesn't want to do so much as mention. Massive human rights violation at a minimum is happening for all to see. The United States won't stand for it. We will act. Also, I will be cutting off all future funding to South Africa until a full investigation of the situation has been completed. This is a video of Trump on the tarmac right after he posted this, addressing the situation.
When he says certain classes of people, he means white farmers.
Yes, and I will get into that.
Right,
but here is his statement clarifying.
No, it's only South Africa. Terrible things are happening in South Africa. The leadership is doing some terrible things, horrible things. So that's under investigation right now. We'll make a determination. And until such time as we find out what South Africa is doing, they're taking away land, they're confiscating land, and actually they're doing things that are perhaps far worse than that.
Genocidal.
Yeah. What he means by that and why this is so significant is because Donald Trump is acknowledging the unspoken genocide that has been taking place in South Africa for nearly 30 years.
Not only South Africa, we're talking about Rhodesia.
Yes, and I will get into that. But
Right,
South Africa is the one that no one will mention because for decades now, white landowning farmers have been brutally murdered by mobs of criminals who are perhaps backed by the South African government. But before we get into that, let's look at the response from the South African government. This is South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is, a frequent enemy of Elon Musk as well.
Is he the one that there's a video of on the internet basically saying he can't promise not to kill white people?
This isn't that guy, but I have videos of those guys as well.
Exactly the one that you're
So he was
talking
posting, South Africa is a constitutional democracy deeply rooted in the rule of law, justice, and equality. South African government has not confiscated any land. The recently adopted Expropriation Act is not a confiscation instrument, but a constitutionally mandated legal process that ensures public access to land in an equitable and just manner as guided by the Constitution. He actually got community noted to show that that's not true.
They haven't confiscated any land because it wasn't theirs in the first place.
Yes.
So
but according to the community note, the new law replaces the 75 statute, moving from a concept of willing seller, willing buyer to just and equitable in the public interest, opening up the possibility of forced compulsory land acquisition in the name of racial equity. So if we go to the next slide here, we'll have an excerpt from the bill. This is the preamble. Or I'm sorry, this is him talking in response to Trump's statement, and then we'll get to the bill.
Right.
This issue that Donald Trump fears so much. We offer this question of the land. I don't know what Donald Trump has to do with South African land because he's never been here. And he must keep his America. We will keep our South Africa.
how much aid does South Africa
And
get
yes,
from
he
the
must do.
$440 million a year.
South Africa is our land. South Africa belongs to all the people who live here in South Africa. It does not belong to Donald Trump. He can keep his America.
So we can pause it there.
I better watch it because Trump's just taking things.
Yeah,
We'll take
Trump,
South
yeah.
Africa too.
But Ramaphosa
easy.
goes on to
That'd be a great take. They have a lot of gold.
Yeah, for sure. He
and
goes on to
diamonds.
condemn the United States for saying, the Americans slaughtered all their people and stole their land, so we're better than they are because we're restoring land. This is the
we gave them
preamble of the bill.
blankets. It's not our fault that
Yeah.
the Indians didn't have better immune systems.
Yeah. It's not my fault.
Hey, you sold the entire Great Plains for a bottle of whiskey and some beads. That's not my problem. But this is,
Bad negotiators on top
very
of it.
bad.
have you ever heard of The Art of the Deal? The Comanches clearly never
That
read
was a
Art of
very
the Deal.
bad deal. You
Very
did not
bad.
get true value for what you had.
I don't drink.
This has been one of the worst trade deals in the history of trade deals, maybe ever. This is the preamble from the South African Land Appropriations Bill. Not even the actual text of the bill itself, just the beginning part of it, highlighted portion. To identify certain instances where the provision of nil compensation may be just and equitable for expropriation of the public interest. So anyone who's saying this bill does not allow the government to just seize land from white farmers
It's
to
right
redistribute,
there.
No, but
it's
you
in
see
the first friggin' sentence.
No, but the semantic game there is not that it's not happening. It's that what's happening is not expropriation. It's equitable redistribution.
exactly.
Come on, man.
So, further question, if we go to the next one, that is a picture from the South African government's website. What may be expropriated? According to the Constitution of South Africa, Section 25(4)(b), property is not limited to land. Thus, any property, including movable property and immovable property, may be expropriated, which means it doesn't have to just be land. We can take whatever we want.
Anything on
Your
the land.
house,
Yeah.
the stuff in the house, we'll take it.
Everything.
We'll take it.
Movable property. You can
Exactly.
move a house.
No, what's actually shocking about that is even the house at least would be immovable, but they can take
Everything.
movable assets like
Everything.
gold that you
Car,
might have.
Yeah,
Or-
well, yeah.
So, have you guys seen this monument before? This memorial, the Witkrus Monument or the White Cross Memorial? It is along the side of the highway in South Africa. Each of those crosses, there are over 3,000 of them, represents a white farmer who has been murdered since the end of apartheid in the 1990s.
Oh, damn.
I have to go through some of these
It's-
things to.
And I can ask you,
Yeah.
you know this, and I mean, I know of this story because for a while, like the West was not taking white farmers from South Africa because they weren't deemed to be like a vulnerable people. Who in their right mind stays there? Like it's not an accident. This is it's a small scale genocide. Why do white farmers even stay in the country?
All right, can I talk on this?
Yeah.
Because I'm part of that white population that when no,
Kelly's laughing.
no, I'm very serious. Like today I went to get coffee and there was an Argentinian lady. I was like, "Hey, guess where I'm from?" He's like, "Canada." I didn't take offense, but it's fine, you know. But the thing is, and my grandfather was one of those people that went to South America as he went to South Africa and made the place better. All right, they built cities, they built farms, they taught people how to do things, they established a government. All right, and it was 2 years ago that this also happened in Chile. The indigenous people of Chile, they turned into terrorist groups and they burned an old couple alive inside their home. Imagine how horrific. And the guy that burned them alive, since he's an indigenous person, he got scar-free. So he was allowed to leave jail and go see his family. And the same thing is happening in South Africa. And this is going to be a problem because guys like me or the white farmers in South Africa, they're left without a land, all right? Because it's straight up dangerous to be 6 foot tall, blue-eyed in these countries. And nobody's taking responsibility. Like most of the people that left from Germany, they left before World War II. They left in World War I during the Weimar Republic, that everything was going to shit. You had like high inflation, and they all left to South American countries, and they left to African nations, all right? And Germany's not taking them back.
No,
you
hell
know,
no.
they'd rather take everyone else, like from Tunisia, from whatever place, they'd rather take them back. And their lives and lives of people in South America, in South Africa, you're going to get into Rhodesia. You're going to get into all the settlements of people that went there to make a better living and to make the country better. It's in danger.
No, and I imagine there's going to be mass starvation as a result of the farmers
Yeah,
who know how to
and
farm.
the other thing that you mentioned, like, why do they stay? Why do they stay? Because these people are descendants of people who have been there for hundreds of years.
Hundreds of years.
What we're talking about specifically are the Boers, which are the descendants of Dutch farmers who settled South Africa when that was a Dutch territory.
Afrikaans. So
Yes.
like it, bro.
The Boers settled in South Africa in 1652. The group of Africans that is the primary inhabitants of South Africa right now, who are descendants of the Bantu that came from Central Africa, they did not arrive in Cape Town until like 100 years after the Boers set up. There was another indigenous African population that lived there. Many of them had been driven out and killed by the Bantu expanding south, and then those people were largely wiped out by the European expansion. But the reason they don't leave is because it's their land too. By every conceivable metric, the area around Cape Town belongs to the Boer as much as it does to a black African. But the fact that no one is willing to acknowledge this outright genocide that is taking place, that picture of the memorial, every one of those crosses was put up in honor of a person who met their end horrifically at the hands of people who were killing them because of the color of their skin. I know this might take a second, but I pulled just one example because I want to show what these people have been dealing with for decades now. This is a more recent example of the farm murders, as they're called. Verified this, went back and checked it. This was just one account I found shared. British woman Sue Howarth and her husband Robert Lynn were woken at 2 a.m. by 3 men breaking into a window on the remote farm in Dulstrom, a small town in the northeast of South Africa, about 240 kilometers from the nearest capital city. The couple had lived there for 20 years. They were tied up, stabbed, and tortured with a blowtorch for several hours. The masked men stuffed a plastic bag down Miss Howarth's throat and attempted to strangle her husband with a bag around his neck. They were bundled into their own truck, still in their pajamas, and driven to a roadside where they were shot. Mrs. Howarth, 64, a former pharmaceutical company executive, was shot twice in the head. Mr. Lynn, 66, was shot in the neck. Miraculously, he survived and managed to flag down a passerby early Sunday morning. Miss Howarth, who police said was unrecognizable from her injuries, had multiple skull fractures, gunshot wounds, and horrific burns to her breasts. Her head was covered in a towel. Her eyes were swollen shut. She was partially clothed with scraps of her shirt remaining. Her breasts and upper body were bloody. The plastic bag shoved down her throat took effort to remove because her jaws were clamped down tightly. How she managed to breathe with a bag in her throat remains a mystery. They found her in a ditch. They transported them both to a hospital, and she died 2 days later. The husband survived.
Wow.
One example out of over 3,000 that has happened since the 1990s.
I heard thousands of stories. Like my best
brutal.
friend, he's from Zimbabwe, and they had to leave because of this. All right? And it's terrifying, you know. And I think this is why we have refugee programs. All right? This is fair and square why the United States has refugee programs. Those people need to have refugee status here. They will be a plus, you know, for any agrarian, you know, state in the United States. They can build Ohio, they can build Arkansas. We should put them in land and let them do their thing because we can't keep having them murdered.
Yeah,
you know?
and that story was widely shared in many international newspapers. Let me show you what Reuters said in response to Trump cutting off the aid. I don't have a thing to show up for this, but during his first administration, Trump said that the U.S. would investigate large-scale killings of white farmers in South Africa and violent takeovers of land. There is no evidence of such killings or takeovers of land. In 2023, Trump's ally, South African-born Elon Musk, accused the government of seeking a genocide of white people. That notion, which circulates in far-right chat rooms, attempts to link land reforms to murders of white farmers during robberies, saying the killings are acts of state-sponsored ethnic cleansing aimed to scare them off the land. So the Western media just denies that it's taking place.
I'm just looking up to see if Associated Press took any of that USAID money. Let's see.
It's horrific.
Political.
That was
They're
Reuters.
goddamn propagandists. They are of the highest order.
But I know we're coming to a close here, but if we can show this video of Julius Malema, he is the leader of one of the biggest parties in South Africa. He was too radical for Nelson Mandela's African National Congress and started his own party they're just straight up communists. This was him a little over a year ago.
like Nelson Mandela, that everyone...
Yes, this guy was more radical than Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
Listen to this chant that he is leading the crowd in.
Kichi, kichi, kichima. Simran Konto Alliance. Shoot to kill. Yamaza. Kill the poor. The farmer. Kill the poor. The farmer.
Kill the Boer farmer, is what he's saying.
Pa.
Look at that freaking.
This is a struggle song that dates back to the apartheid days.
Yeah, you see, like,
Kill the Boer, the farmer, shoot to kill. And they said, oh, this entire thing it's just metaphorical, you know? It's about resistance. It's not about actual murder.
Shoot the
By
farmer.
the way, I
yeah.
just grokked it. Yes, AP. There are indications that they've received USAID, but I'm not saying it as a joke, and it's not a question of like being brave and it's your land defended. That's when you get the hell out.
That's true.
And that's it. I mean, like, okay, it's dying for a principle. I don't even know what principle is anymore because it's going to be pointless. You're surrounded by enemies who want to kill you based on the color of your skin. You have to leave.
But if you want to see what happens when this kind of thing is implemented, look no further than Rhodesia, which is modern-day Zimbabwe, which, rather than take the Nelson Mandela approach of doing it slowly through the government, Robert Mugabe came in and just decided they were going to kill or drive out all the white farmers and redistribute the land.
I could do a whole segment
Yeah,
on Mugabe.
I would. I thought I could tack it onto the end, but I know we're right up against it, so I'll just give you the quick summary version. They killed or drove off every white farmer, redistributed the land, and then realized, oh, nobody who's not a white farmer in this country knows how to farm.
Weird.
Which is why since like the mid-2000s, there's been a nonstop famine in Zimbabwe. They are now paying white farmers to come back,
F
invest
that.
in infrastructure, and show them how to rebuild the country.
F that.
So, yes,
No,
while we give refugee status to every single person who steps foot across the southern border, we should close the border, and take in every South African farmer who applies.
Because this is what refugee people are supposed to be, is fleeing persecution. What you've had with the Syrian migrants into Germany, what you have with the southern border, are economic migrants, pure and simple, if not something much more sinister.
Yeah.
Right,
So South Africa's cooked along with everything
But
else.
I'm glad Donald Trump is taking notice.
good. No, can I be honest with you guys? I had no idea. I read and see and consume a lot of content. That is I saw the video. I saw that video on X a while ago, and then the other one about that guy saying, "What
I
was
cannot promise not to kill them."
Yeah. There's members of parliament in South
Parliament, that's what
Africa
I'm
saying.
saying.
Not yet for
Not
Yeah,
yet.
there was another guy who was saying, for every one black person that is killed in this political movement, we will kill 5 white people.
5 white people,
These
yeah.
are all elected officials
Yeah, I
who
saw
are
that.
in charge of the government. So
Yeah.
Vinny and everybody else watching at home, dig deep into this subject. Look at the history of Rhodesia. Look at what happened in South Africa and what is continuing to happen, because that's what they want to happen here.
Of course they do.
It is.
Of course.
We are never more than 1 or 2 bad elections away from that happening.
Yep.
So in the modern day quest to make the world Zimbabwe, we are all Rhodesians now, and it's time
Some
we
might
acted
say
like
that
it.
Trump's election, we really dodged a bullet.
No.
Okay, that was too
Well,
soon.
I know, honestly, and if Kamala won, that's the kind that if Kamala won, guys, that is the route that the country would have gone to at some point.
If that shooter, whose name need not be mentioned, if there had not been divine intervention, you would have either had Kamala Harris or Nikki Haley, both of which are just as bad.
You know who didn't dodge the bullet? The South African farmers, and we should all
They
remember.
did not. We should all. Yeah, I get it. All right. So if you like this clip, click right here. And if you want to see more like it, click right here. Stay angry, Patriots.